What the hell? Are we live? Can you see it?
Rolling live on my side.
Is it rolling live on your side?
Yeah, we're at 14 seconds. Bring it, baby.
Just tell me we're live. Well, that's why we got an editor. We're live. Welcome to the Deal Champs podcast. I'm your co-host, Stratton Brown, aka Strat Daddy. We have Mr. Jason Pritchard, the master of hair, on today, and a really special guest who I'll introduce a little bit later. Real quick about myself. I got started in real estate after playing D1 football, making absolutely zero money trying out for the pros. And then from there, I worked for another guy, and now we built a seven-figure real estate portfolio. We have a VA business that helps other real estate investors scale and put in good people into their business. And real estate has changed my life and everyone else here. And our entire goal with this podcast is so you can learn and implement what we talk about here into your own business. Every pod that we have done, myself, Dean, and Jason have all learned something that we've been able to go take away and implement. And we hope you guys can do the same thing. We have our other co-host, the master of hair, Mr. Jason Pritchard. No hair out today.
No hair today. I was traveling last week, so I went 2 weeks without a haircut. So wearing a hat today, boys. I couldn't do the hair today. It's a little bit of a mess. I'm your other co-host, Jason Pritchard. Thank you guys for tuning in and joining us live. Little backstory on me. I worked in corporate America for 15 plus years in sales and sales management. Hated my job, hated my life, always wanted to do real estate. I burned all the boats in 2014 and have not looked back since. I quit my corporate job, and since then we've flipped over 400 houses. We own a rental portfolio of just over 100 units, mainly here in Central California. And like Stratton said earlier, real estate investing has absolutely changed my life for the better. And we want to transfer as many of the skills and knowledge that we've learned over our careers to all of you guys that are watching today. I think today is going to be a great episode. I'm very excited to hear what our guest, Derek, the ADU guy, has to say. He's got a really cool story and doing something a little bit different than what a lot of our other guests are doing too. So it's going to give you guys some insight into a different way of investing that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. So excited to hear more about that.
And now we have the master of ADUs. It looks like the master of mustaches as well. The ski bum and trail runner. That ADU guy, Derek. Welcome on, my man. Thank you so much for coming.
Super stoked to be here. Hopefully I'll be able to say something that helps some people out.
Oh yeah, bro. So give us a quick background on you so everybody can just know what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, nothing special. Probably way more average than most of you that are listening. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, single mom. Poverty was part of my story. I grew up living in crappy apartments, and I was always building forts and knowing that I could build a better life with my hands. Got into blue collar work, was a carpenter and a fireman in past lives, and have basically accidentally found myself building needed infill housing with a tenant's mindset. So my secret to success is like coming from a tenant mindset. Like, how do we build and manage amazing properties that just blow our competition away? And I've got a bunch of great actionable takeaways that hopefully I can share with you guys and girls, so you can implement these strategies in your markets. Because like Jason alluded to, not a lot of people are doing what we're doing, and it's a really, really good strategy. And we can find some equity and some cash flow in a lot of markets where people are complaining about the opposite.
Especially in California, dude. I feel like in California, it's not as much in Fresno, but in like Bay Area and LA, ADUs are a huge thing right now. Just so you can make something pencil and make it work out.
Yeah. Amen, Strat. And that's something that I'd love to address real quickly. Is there's a lag effect. Okay, we talk about lag effect in interest rates and the Fed. We talk about lag in absorption rate when a bunch of rentals hit the market, but there's also a lag in strategy. So a lot of people in Fresno a few years ago would have said, I would never build an ADU or convert an ADU when I would just go buy another house for $150,000. But we forget that these houses are appreciating at breakneck speed, and that $150,000 house, somebody just made a video on of how they just sold it for $350,000. So as we gain more equity and the land becomes more valuable, this strategy is really going to take hold. So just because you're in Fresno, where land was traditionally one of the cheapest places to buy in California, that's not the case today. Especially if you're like in the Tower District, or you have a little bit bigger lot on maybe a nicer side of town where people are already doing this there. One thing I will say to your market, I've been there a few times. thankfully to speak with you guys. And your planning department loves the strategy. You guys have free ADU plans that your city gives away. There's somebody designated to just onboarding those plans and helping people develop. So there's some runway, I would say, in all of California, and nobody is really exempt. You know, if you live in an area that has a low vacancy rate, I say at least consider the strategy.
But I gotta say, you are the most thoughtful speaker we've ever had come, because you did research on the entire Fresno market before you even came and spoke at our meetup. And you're like, hey, this is the game plan. I've already called everybody. I've talked to everybody. Here's what you need to do. No one else, and we've had tons of people come out, has put in that much effort into coming and speaking at one of our meetups. And I really appreciate that. I think that is next level class.
Thank you.
What'd you have?
I want to jump into what you said at the beginning, Derek, because I feel I'm a big mindset person. And I think a lot of people struggle with making that initial leap. So I heard you say came from the wrong side of the tracks, single mom, blue collar background, then you're a firefighter, right? Like there's a lot of limiting beliefs and things that have to be overcome to get to the space that you're at now. So we probably have the profile of the people listening are probably skewing newer and struggling with a lot of that transition, right? What was it about you and your background that allowed you to kind of transition into this space and get past, you know, some of the things that maybe were a hindrance to you at the beginning?
Yeah, wonderful question. It's a passion that burns deep inside me. Like I feel like I can crush any standard work ethic because I care so much about housing. And I would say because we're patient, right? We can be patient. So if you're listening and you think, you know, I grew up, nobody in my family knows anything about real estate. Nobody knows anything about credit. Nobody knows anything about how to get a loan. Like that's not an excuse. I wouldn't even call it a self-limiting belief. I would say you're selling yourself short. One thing that you know, I learned later, I didn't even know what mindset was before I knew that I wanted to help people. And I would tell folks listening right now, like, if you have any self-limiting beliefs, or you think, oh, real estate's too good for me, or how could I ever get 1 unit, let alone 500 units? I would just say, and this is what I tell myself, is nobody gives a shit. They really don't. Nobody really cares about you. They care about them. So if you can make it about other people, your mindset will reach down and pull you up. And I wasn't born with this thought process. It took me a while, but by watching other people around me. I mean, hearing Strat's story, hearing your story, Pritchard. I mean, it choked everybody up in the audience. There were 500 people like wiping their eyes when they heard your story. Like if people knew where you came from, like they would go run through a brick wall to get their first deal. I think a lot of people don't. So to kind of circle back is like, nobody really cares what our deficiency is or what our mindset might be. Deep down, they care about like, how can they improve their own life? So if you have those beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, look around to other people in your circles, or maybe outside of your circles. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe change your circle and ask the people that are successful what they did to become successful, and hear their story, and like be a good active listener. And what you'll find, what I have found over time, is that like most of them struggled as much or as more as I did, just in different areas. Like I know very few super helpful, super giving people that were born with wealth. They earned it. And that's why they're so passionate, like you guys on this show, about sharing it. I mean, very few people I meet have an amazing beginning. It was usually some kind of gnarly struggle. They're a competitor in some way, maybe in athletics, maybe with themselves, but they're all like teammates, they're competitors, and they went through a lot of hardship to get where they're at. So that's my kind of 2 cents on shaping mindset.
I love that. And I can get a sense that you embrace some of that perceived hardship at the beginning. And I see that as a common trait too. Like with me, especially in Strat, I know too, the things that were those challenges and what were difficult at the time are the things that ended up propelling us to where we're at now. Right. And so it's usually those tests that get us to where we're going to go, and learning how to embrace that and leverage that to get to where you're at, I think is a lesson that a lot of people can take away. So was it ADUs initially, like when you first started out, were you leveraging that blue collar background and going onto the construction side and just building, or were you doing fix and flip? Like what was it that initially was what did those first few deals look like for you, Derek?
Yeah, wonderful. So I've always been a builder. I had a full-time job in the summer starting at 10 years old and would work 40 or 50 hours through the summer as literally as a child. And it wasn't until I was in high school, my freshman year in high school, our wood shop teacher, John Weston, bless his heart, he handpicked a group of misfit kids. And we thought we were special, but really he handpicked a bunch of punk kids that probably weren't going to go to college and decided on his own that he was going to teach us a trade. He started a construction technology class, and we built an illegal accessory dwelling unit for another one of our high school teachers. This was in 1995, and I just happened to just be lucky. I like privilege because I'm white, privilege because I lived in this little town that had an ADU code in 1995, like 25 years ahead of its time. And we built this little project, and I just remember thinking, like, I'm going to create lots of these. Like, this is a path to building needed infill housing. I always had the mindset of capitalism with compassion. Like, how can I make money and build houses? And I just like fell into this, got lucky in 1995, built my first ADU as part of this class, and started an apprenticeship right after that and got my contractor's license in the year 2000. And I just kind of never looked back. And you ask about fix or flips or any other strategies, and the answer is no. And part of my success and one of my superpowers is I can continue to chew and swallow boring. So we did this, 1995. I started doing it for other people in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I was just a muscle. Pace Morby talks about thinking he was in real estate until one of his mentors said, no, I'm in real estate and you work for me. So I was the muscle of the deal for a while. And then it dawned on me that I could do this for myself. But the long story short is I've been doing one strategy and one strategy only since the very beginning. We've never sold a house. We've never bought a strip mall. I've never went and looked at a manufactured home park. We just do one thing, and we just continue to get better. And as many deals as we've done and as many developments as we do and people we help, like every time we still completely botch something easy and learn and kind of make the process better. So I just like to say we're not getting better at this. We're just getting more efficient.
Bro, how have you stayed focused for that long? I think as an entrepreneur, that is the hardest aspect of it all. I mean, because Jason's doing new deals that are like different. I'm doing new deals that are different because like you get bored is the biggest thing I could say. Like, yeah, we do houses, but like, I want to do something bigger or I want to do something different because you get bored of it. How have you stayed focused for 25 years?
A couple of reasons. I would say one is I want to win. Like, I want to win. I don't want there to be a better person at what I do on this planet. And I'm passionate about that. And to do that, I have to have more reps. Another reason, maybe less self-fulfilling, and I probably should have started with, but is equally as important to me is the barrier of entry so low. And as I look at what my life means to me and I look at like my value to other people, it's just as a teacher. And I think I can help more people. I could help 10,000 people get one unit. I'm way better at that than I am at letting myself get 10,000 units. So the barrier of entry to this product is so low that so many people, they're listening right now. Like, I'm talking to you right there. You can do this. You can buy your first house. You can get your credit score up. You could be in the 600s and still go qualify for a house. Buy it with 3.5% down or 5% down conventional and convert the master bedroom into a legal rental and live in that and rent out the 2-1 of the old 3-2 that you just bought and get on the property ladder, live there for a year and then go repeat the strategy. If you did that once a year for 5 years in an average market, you're going to be a millionaire through equity. I mean, hit the gas pedal a little bit or add an ADU to each one of those houses. I mean, you have 10 properties in 5 years that you're renting while you never even changed your same debt to income ratio with like a job at your local coffee shop. I mean, you can really do this. And that's what I like about it. That's why I still do it, is because I like teaching the new person. People with lots of property and lots of money don't need my service. I wouldn't be as much value. The higher we get up in our investment scale and the rooms we get in, the less and less people can learn from us. So I think I'm of most value down in the weeds with the other blue collar people that I relate with, helping them get on the property ladder. That keeps me motivated from getting bored.
Bro, I love it. What's been the hardest part of your journey so far? Like legitimately, like a point to where you're like, Jesus, I'm built for this shit, but this is brutal.
The hardest part is probably the people. The people business that we're in can get hard. And for me, as an infill housing developer, it's the not in my backyard neighbors that wear me down. So when we buy a property, for somebody that doesn't know what infill is, it's say you buy a house that has a big lot, and as opposed to playing horseshoes and mowing that lawn every week, we're going to build a house in the backyard with new laws that allow us to do this all over the country. And a NIMBY is an acronym for somebody that says not in my backyard. In other words, they want housing. They like people to be housed. They probably have a few rentals of their own. They just don't want rental properties around them. So the not in my backyard crowd is pretty wearing. It wears you down. I mean, I don't really, back to my initial intro, like nobody gives a shit. They really don't. It was born from the fact that it wasn't personal. People didn't not like what I was doing. They just don't like change. And if you're going to build houses, a lot of people in our business think that they're creating more housing and they're making a difference. And a lot of us, our strategies are just like improving the housing we already have. To actually create new housing, you have to like trade it for bare land. And a lot of people get super protective of neighboring properties. So the whole not in my backyard movement, I would say is the hardest part about doing what we do, for sure. Like hands down, that's it.
One of the things that I like about our core business, which is fixing and flipping and just kind of getting in and out of properties, some wholesaling and wholetailing, is the speed of those transactions, right? And so what you just got done saying, I think can tend or lend to like delays, longer term projects. So what's a typical project look like for you where you're at, right? From the point of acquisition, acquiring the land, having to get all, your plans in place, breaking ground, like to the point where you sell it. What does that typically look like for you, Derek?
Yeah, great question. So we're comfortable with our tiny little team that's small and mighty. We like to have one active project. So there's a remodel and a build. We like to have one project that's going through planning, getting approved. And then we like to have one project that's teed up. And then the conveyor belt feeds those three. The average deal for us looks like we buy an older house that's on a big lot. And we do some kind of delayed close every time if we can. We want to know that when we close, we're going to have permits to do a full remodel on the house, and we're going to have approval to build the second unit or to do the lot split and start the second unit. So in a perfect world, we'd have a long close, say 60 to 90 days, and we would close. We would remodel that old house. It's usually built in the 40s or 50s. We'll do a full remodel down to the studs, new electrical, new plumbing, new floors, new cabinets, new HVAC, new everything. And that should take us anywhere from 30 to 90 days. Average is 60. And then we'll pull permits, usually accessory dwelling unit permits over the counter. And we'll build those units or that unit in anywhere from 90 to 120 days. So we're in and out of a rehab, no more than 3 months. And we're usually in and out of a new build in 3 months. So 6 months has always been kind of the standard. We'll remodel the house and build at least one ADU in 6 months. If we have to do a lot split, that's usually going to take about 6 months. So we're going to buy the house, remodel it, have it rented for 3 months before the lot split. When the lot split gets recorded at the county, we'll build the new house and the new ADU with it. New builds for us take about 90 days to do a unit. And the one thing I'll say to all my BRRRR friends out there, and if you're on this show, you know what BRRRR stands for, but buy, rehab, renovate, or buy, rent, rehab, refinance, repeat. Some changes have come down. If you have conventional federal money, you have to wait a year. So that BRRRR strategy, if you're buying it, even if you're buying it with cash, if you're going to put long-term debt on it in a conventional route, the seasoning period has recently gone from 6 months to 12. So it slows that velocity down a little bit, but we don't sell. So we don't sell our houses. We just put them into service. So it doesn't really matter to us unless we're going to try to cash out some of our money. We like to leave equity in the deals. I mean, our strategy is all about cash flow. I mean, I started this project with, I don't want to work anymore. I want to generate high cash flow, and that usually comes with a lot of lazy equity. So we have low LTV on our properties, so they cash flow a lot. We sleep well at night, and it's very, very low risk. But the standard window is 6 months for our main play.
So core, like an acquisitions arm that goes and sources the properties, and then we cherry pick kind of the best deals that we keep for ourselves. But we are actively buying and selling stuff to just keep chunks of cash coming in because, you know, the business needs fuel to run and operate every single day. I heard you say that you guys like to hang on to most of that stuff. So where do you guys sell any of the properties that you're fixing to bring like working capital in so the business can keep moving forward? Or if not, how do you guys fund new acquisitions, especially when you have so many different things kind of going on at the same time?
Yeah, it's by controlling our spending and living a modest lifestyle and just reinvesting everything back into the business. So we don't run huge volumes. We do probably anywhere from 4 to 6 deals a year, and these are new builds. So this produces like a new finished piece of sausage at the end, right? So this isn't something that we're doing 20 a month of. But what we've done, again, through putting a lot of cash in these deals and keeping our loan to value really low and our equity really high, we're able to just recycle capital. So, I mean, I have one home equity line on one property that can fund 2 or 3 houses at a time, and then we just recycle that money. And the main income is cash flow. So we just have this big pile of cash flow coming in every month. And because the debt service on it is so low, most of that cash flow is profit, and we can roll it into new deals to the point that right now, a lot of the stuff we're building and buying is pretty flat. Like it doesn't have a lot of cash flow if we pull our equity back out. But at this point in our career, we don't need the cash flow. We're just trying to build that long-term appreciation, slow and steady. And oddly enough, with rates so high, like this is the first time we've ever thought, like, should I sell something? We're doing these old deals. I don't like to keep old houses now. I mean, my goal has always been to have the highest amount of cash flow with the least amount of doors. And when I started, and I share all my numbers so average people can hear this stuff. Like I was making 10 grand a month as a fireman, and I thought I need to replace that, and I'm gone. I'll never work another day in my life, and I'll run and ski and be off into the sunset. And what I found was my goal was way too small. I can live like a king off of 5 grand a month, and we over doubled the income we thought we were going to have. So it just left us with a lot of fuel to put back into the machine. But with the rates being so high now, and the cost to hold, we're looking at these older properties that we have and thinking, well, maybe not the best time to sell, but I don't want to manage we've got 22 houses, and the older ones, part of that strategy, we buy the old house, remodel it so we can build the new ones. Like some of the old ones I don't want. I just don't want to have to manage an old house. Even with brand new systems, they're just a little less desirable. And when, again, we want to be the best, we want to just crush the market. We got to have brand new products that are on point. And some of these older ones, we're considering selling these ones where we have a couple in process right now where we might sell the old house and then obviously just keep the new. So instead of cherry picking deals like you're talking about that come and keep the best and sell the rest, we're just going to potentially just maybe pass off a few of the old ones if rates don't improve. But again, we have a pretty small machine, so we don't have to generate income for payroll or anything like that.
Bro, have you ever raised money? And do you have any? I love your machine that you have. Are you thinking, because when we were talking earlier, like, bro, I have so much deal flow. I feel like you could quadruple it if you really wanted to, just with the amount of deal flow you're getting. Have you thought about doing that and raising cash? Or what's that mindset?
Yeah. The mindset is I'm a lone wolf, and that's a self-limiting belief, and I can admit to that. Like I know that's just holding down our system, but my core values and what I want and what I believe are very simple, and I'm like very true to them. So nothing wrong with wholesaling. Like I would love to do a bunch of wholesale deals, but when I see somebody that's in a bad situation, like I just want to like pay them out of it. I like if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, here's my distressed property for 100 grand that's worth 200," all these sweetheart deals that all my friends talk about, like it just wouldn't set well with me to do that deal. Like it just wouldn't. Okay. And then as far as money, I just had a friend come out for a due diligence trip an amazing time we had out here. I have people call me all the time that says, whatever you're doing, I want to invest. Like, whatever, I'll be equity, I'll be debt. Like, let me just come out and do what you're doing. Like, let me hang out with you for a week. And I'm always like, yes, come do a due diligence trip. Come see what we do. But I don't need anything. I don't need anybody's labor. I don't need anybody's money. I don't need anybody's time. I don't really want anything. So until that changes, again, it's like that same boring thing. Why do you build a 524 square foot box over and over and over and over? Because it works, and it works really well. And so if it's like not broke, don't try to fix it kind of a thing. And back to my goal of like, I don't need 10,000 units. I want to help 10,000 people get one unit. The more time I have on shows like this, you guys have a huge following. The more of your friends that see what we're doing and see that they can do it too. Like, that's the greatest and best use of my time. Not like, how do I spool up the machine to do 100K a month and get a Lambo? Like, that's just not, I don't give a shit.
Well, and it's really nice to have because you've built the ultimate freedom machine is the best way I could put it. Like, because you weren't worried about debt service, you weren't worried about employees, you weren't worried about investors and returns. Don't you ski all wintertime?
That's all I
That's
do.
what you love to do.
That's all I do. Something I'll tell our listeners right now. And like, I'm so thankful to have these friendships, people like you guys that are in growth mindset inspire me. Like, I look up to you guys so much just because I'm more of a small vision thinker. Does not mean that these guys and girls have to be too. I mean, follow your passion. Mine's simple. And one thing that I always equate my wealth to is my freedom. So today, literally 4 hours ago, Strat Daddy was like, can you hop on a podcast today? And I said, yes. Like, I have a schedule. If I showed you guys my Google Calendar, you'd be like, this guy is literally a bum. And then I'd pull out my hat that says ski bum. And I would be like, thank you. I mean, that's the wealth that I'm operating in. It's like, I just want my time, guys. I don't need to scale some huge business and own a jet. Nothing wrong with that. Like, I love the ambition that drives people to that direction. Mine's just different. That's all.
It's very admirable to hear you just kind of talk through this process that you have, because so many people in our space are on the other end of the spectrum, legitimately like the entire opposite end of the spectrum. And it's all go, 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 all gas. Like, let's just go to the moon with this thing. And I really love and appreciate, Derek, just hearing you talk about what's important to you and staying true to that and just making that the most important thing. And that's the guiding light on your GPS. And I think for the people that are watching, it's okay, dude. Like, it's really, truly is okay to, like, whatever freedom, financial freedom, whatever your goals and whatever that is, that's important to you. That's okay. And you don't have to be like anybody else. And social media can do it can do some scary things to the way that you think about how you compare yourself to other people. And it's just really cool to hear how you have such a clear understanding of what you want your life to be, and you're building your business to support your lifestyle. I think so many people get into this to say, hey, I want financial freedom, or I want this, that, and the other thing. And the business ends up controlling their lives, right? And you have it you've built it the right way, dude. And I think that's really awesome, man. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. By none of my own fault. I'll just say this really quickly, that all the seasoned, experienced investors that I know and I look up to that are like 50 and older, I'm so thirsty for information from these old timers, and every one of them, says the same thing. When I ask them, what advice would you give your 42-year-old self or your 30-year-old self, or however old I was when I asked, and they all say the same thing. They say, I didn't really have a plan to unwind this. And now looking back, I wish I would have enjoyed life more and spent less time in my business or on my business. They all say that, every single one of them. And they would all also trade everything they have, to be 25 again. So that's always rung true to me. I never agreed with it. It's just like, oh, they don't know me, and oh, bullshit. Yeah. Like, but really it's like, yes, they did. They were me. And I need to listen when they all say the same thing. Like, I'm the common denominator in my thinking. And so I've really tried to cue in on that. And every time I buy a property from a tired landlord, I ask them the same thing, and they all tell me the same answer. Like, I wish I would have lived more and done less business. So I've tried to just not believe it, but learn and listen and trust that everybody's saying the same thing for the same reason. And I don't have to, take it to the moon. I can also kind of enjoy the journey. It's about the process. I mean, wealth to me is waking up healthy and like having a smile on my face. It's not about, that $100,000 last month through my funnel.
But
thank you for noticing that, Pritchard. No, not many people do. Like the society tells us the opposite. And
they do.
really easy for us.
Especially in our space, dude. Like, especially once you get into our business and you start putting your stuff out on, it's very easy to get sucked into that kind of rabbit hole of like the jets and the big, whatever, all the blah, blah, blah. And it's refreshing to hear somebody else go the other way, and you can just tell that you really truly mean it, dude. And I think for the people that are watching, it's okay. Wherever you end up on the spectrum is fine, as long as it's true for you. I think that's the learning lesson hearing, because we all three of us here, I think, have different places where we want to land on whatever that spectrum is. And as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, I think that's important, man. It's a big nugget for everybody that's watching right now.
You are the most congruent person I have met in the entrepreneur space. It's the best way I could put it. You feel very congruent with everything you were doing. Do you have any Airbnbs, bro? Like, since you're trying to maximize that cash flow with those ADUs?
No, I don't. I specialize in long-term workforce housing. Again, my why, like growing up in a housing insecure situation, like having long-term, safe, nice, new custom housing for tenants. Like tenants want the same things that owners want in this order. They want location, privacy, and amenities. And if I can give people that, they're going to hopefully stay forever. So my core value is to provide needed infill housing for workforce. And so because of that, we don't do any short term. I've got one property up on a mountain lake that's been seasonally a short term rental, only because it snows so much in the winter and it's hard to get people to stay. But no, that's not. I stay away from midterm, short term. It's all about long term housing. I hope people stay forever and never leave. That's the passive piece. That's how I can manage all these properties. Basically by myself. We build property management into them with lifelong products. And then we try to keep rents just below market, and we just hope that they never stay and never call. And that's what buys us our time back, right?
So from what I understand and what you talked about, you have amazing relationships with all of your tenants. Mm-hmm. What's your rent raise look like consistently? Like, are you just, okay, rent went up a little bit this year, we'll do it at 1.5 points instead of 3 points? Like, what does that look like?
Traditionally, this is a wonderful question too, because landlord-tenant law is getting a little bit out of control, especially in Oregon, California, New York, which is a huge advantage. We go to these events in Arizona and they're talking about rent control coming and everybody's freaking out and all the investors are going to leave the room. And it's like, I'm glad I'm in a state that already has established that. We know the rules. So traditionally, we've never raised rents until they turn over. Our average, and we don't have some fancy KPI system. When I say we, it's like me with a notebook. But people stay for about 3 years. And when they leave, we raise rents up to current market minus 5%. That's kind of always my product. Again, I want to be the best, right? How are we the best? Yeah. We give a better service and we charge a little bit less, over deliver and under promise, right? So we don't raise rents until people leave. Just recently, the last couple leases that I've written on new buildings, I'm writing in a 4% annual increase with renewal. And we have a 10% max cap annually in our state now. It used to be 7% plus CPI. Yeah. So last year it was 14%. But now our legislator, and it's good. It's a good thing. Like if you're a good landlord and you have a good product, like, I don't think people should be able to just come in and raise the rent 40% on people that can't afford the rent they're already paying. And another reason why I can't buy, places with tenants in it. But our rent rule now is going to be moving forward, either a 4 or a 5%. I basically just was like, there's headline inflation, and then there's core inflation, and there's like actual real on the street inflation. And I figured, this year it's 4 or 5%. So we're going forward, we'll just put that into our leases. So we have to give a 90-day notice to raise rent. So I don't want to raise rents on people that I already have. But now coming in, they have an informed consent that if I renew my lease in 1 year, I have a 1 year notice that it's going to be going up 4%.
I love that. Are you a big Goggins guy since you're a trail runner?
I don't know. I'm all about
like your vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about anybody who's pushing themselves to be the best. And, I read Can't Hurt Me, and I've been a little bit into Never Finished, but it's like, I love the guy's mindset. I love that he's just the determination. You know, I love that, but I wouldn't say I'm a big Goggins guy. When I see him pop up on my feed, you can bet your ass I stop and listen to every word. I saw something posted. His wife posted something the other day after like getting home from the gym at 8 o'clock. He's like, I'm going on a 100-mile ruck. And like nobody would ever know that. And he probably does that twice a week. Like that's the kind of stuff that, you know, that can pump me up. But, you know, he's got some pretty hardcore beliefs. I'll give him that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I wouldn't say the answer is no. I'm not a Goggins guy, but I respect that dude and I like him. And, occasionally I'll listen to him, some of his stuff when I'm falling asleep, and I just hope to wake up and just be hard.
I love the business model, and I think it's one of those things that are starting to get more traction in, you know, social media and these other places, right? It's starting to become more popular. You're seeing more about ADUs. Cities and municipalities are making it easier for investors to put them on their properties. I do think that there is, I heard you say low barrier to entry, but I think mentally a lot of investors struggle because they don't have maybe the construction background of developing something from the ground up, right? So what kind of advice or feedback, Derek, would you give somebody that really has that lot and has that big space? Their city is pro ADU, they want to do it. What are some tips and things that you can share with somebody that's still struggling maybe with that initial fear of getting over the hump of maybe hiring somebody and just pulling the trigger on one?
Yeah, for sure. If I can back that question up just like a tiny bit and say the training wheels to ADUs are tell your realtors, tell all your friends, tell everybody in your network, you're looking for a house that already has an ADU. One of the best ways to build one is to buy one. I've been building them for 30 years, and my favorite way to build one is to buy one that's already done. Okay. So look for a property that has one. Okay. Look for a property that has one that's not permitted, that'll be easily permitted. Or you did a walkthrough on a property last year, Jason, where you bought one and it didn't have a kitchen, or it was a detached space, or didn't have a bathroom, but it was basically an ADU minus one little piece. So I would say buy a training wheel property that almost has one, or buy a conversion, buy a 4-3 that would easily make a great 1-1 and a 3-2. So those are the 3 step ups. I mean, the new standalone ADU there's a little bit of a learning curve on it. But if you do that, and we have a listener here that, to your point, you just said, hey, I have a property, I have a big backyard, it's flat, I've got alley access, good infrastructure. We're going to try to build an ADU. The first thing I would do is find somebody in your market. And there's a couple in Fresno because I know them. Find somebody in your market that has done it. Come up with a way is best you can to add value to that person. Whatever it is that you do for a living, offer it to them for free. Offer to come sweep floors for them. Anything. You have to lead with value and ask them how they went through the process, what subcontractors they used, what, you know, wins and losses they had at the city. So you have to find a mentor. Do not go at this alone. If you're going to go flip your house, your first house, and there's people on the show right now that will give you great coaching. If you're going to go, you know, buy your first yacht, you better go meet somebody that has experience with boats, that has their captain's license, right? This is no different. Find a mentor in your area and get started. The next step from there would be to, you know, find a contractor. You know, always want to vet them. You want to find a good, simple set of plans. Your city, a lot of cities have plans that are already pre-approved. So you don't even need to figure out what you need to build. Hey, if I can go with this design, shop it around to a few builders and follow that process. But you really do need a mentor in your area.
What does your portfolio look like now? Because like I thought you were just buying one and then putting in an ADU, and then can you do 2 in your area? 2 ADUs or no?
Yeah. In one of my markets, we can do 2. Very similar to California. You know, anywhere in California, you can build at least 2 ADUs, and a JADU, which is within the perimeter of the existing structure, you know, up to 500 square feet, and then you can build a standalone ADU. So one of my main markets, I'm in 2 markets, and they're both small and they're right next to each other. One of them we can build 2. One has to be attached if you're building the second one. So we build like a new house with a detached garage that's attached with a breezeway, so it doesn't actually have a shared wall. And then we build a new standalone. And then the other market I'm in, we can only build 1. And we always go for the new standalone unit. So I think we have 22 doors, and we've got a few different properties that we're going to be building several on. But I think there are 22 doors right now, and half of those were some kind of a primary house. We have 2 shared wall. We try not to ever do shared wall ADUs. They're just not of high demand. So that's kind of the breakdown of our portfolio. We've got some older houses and then some new build houses, and then the rest are all brand new ADUs.
What did it take?
If you're building new, Derek, not figuring the cost of land, because that's going to vary, right? And I also know that construction cost is going to vary based on where you're at. But is there a target like price per square foot that somebody should shoot for to build, not figuring whatever they're going to pay for the land, but just for the construction, so that way they can get a better idea if it's like, okay, it's going to cost me $200 a square foot to build it. I'm going to build 1,000 square foot ADU. So I got to know that we're going to be in this somewhere for around 200 grand, not accounting what I'm going to use to acquire the land acquisition, right? Is there a number for new investors, or is that going to vary too much based on other factors?
No. If you're a new investor on HGTV, I'm going to say a way different number than if you're a new investor that's yield minded, that's watching this show. So if you care about yield and you're building to the neighborhood standard, $225 a square foot is where a new standalone detached unit would start if you're completely hands off. And then half of that, so 100-ish for a conversion. If you have a garage and it's 500 square feet and you want to convert it, might be about $100. So you could bank on that. That's where they start. One thing I would say is that, and I talk about this often, is I call it my 5% rule. And if you can have any of these skills, you bring any of these skills to the deal, you can save 5%. If you can acquire the deal without a realtor, you can save 5%. If your uncle's a roofer and can come help you for trade, that's 5%. If you can do the landscaping yourself on this property, that's 5%. So everybody says there's no deal. And it's like, no, you're not working hard enough to make the deal, or somebody on your team isn't working hard enough to make the deal. So if you can acquire the deal, if you can do a little bit of the work, you can landscape it, and you can paint the outside. I mean, there's a 20% savings against your competition right there. You throw in a couple more creative strategies, and we're just whittling down the price and getting better and better at beating our competition, which means we look for, Jason earlier talked about seeing all these deals coming in and they just keep the really good ones and they wholesale or hotel the rest. Our strategy is like, a sniper rifle and binoculars. We're just looking at the very, very best properties, and then we go pay more than anybody else will pay for them because we're buying the appreciation that we're going to force on that place. So that's something else that somebody can do. But the pricing, again, $225 a square foot. I can build 1,000 square foot max. Oh, it's going to cost me $225,000 is the number one mistake that I see people make. What we should be looking at is, what does a 500 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath rent for? And how much can I build that for? Okay, it's half the price and it's going to get 15% less rent. That's what we want to aim at. So many folks just think that bigger is better because it's already such a small, physically small asset that we think, well, we may as well maximize it. And if you live in some amazing beachfront property like clients of mine that maybe are in Santa Barbara, I would say, yes, max it out, build as max square footage as tall as you can. But if you're looking for a spot to put a nurse in Fresno, a 1-bedroom unit at 500 square feet that say rents for $1,200 is a great play. You would never build 1,000 square foot and put 3 bedrooms in it and think you could get 3,600. So it's like, how do we maximize the yield? It's by building a smaller, nicer unit. You also have less people in and out of it. The door slams less. The toilet flushes less. There's less maintenance. There's less phone calls. There's less problems. There's less turnover. There's just all these amazing reasons why smaller is better in this little market. And it took me a long time to learn that. Like, I'm sharing this with you guys, not because I'm some wisdom holder. It's because I did the wrong thing for a long time before I was like, oh, okay, that works.
And so you're really getting $1,200 on one of those 500 square foot things.
We get 15. I was just using our standard unit gets 1,500. It's a 524 square feet, and it has a couple hundred square foot loft. And they're nice. They're standalone. We allow pets. They have real hardwood, real nail down, sand and finish hardwood floors, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, in-unit full-size washer and dryer, like really nice, affordable yet nice fixtures. And if people say, no way, that's bullshit, you can't do it for that price, on our website, we give it all away. We give away the plans. On every page of my website, under all the tabs, you can see the shopping list. There's an Amazon list of everything we use, the doorknobs, the light fixtures, the cabinet pulls, the mini splits. And if you buy one off of our affiliate, we get like 1/36 of a penny. This is not a money-making thing for us. And then under the resources tab, we give away the plans of our favorite couple of ADUs. So this is all stuff that we're trying to open source. It's not like, oh, Derek's a contractor, he can do it, I can't. Yes, you can. Like share all of our information with your contractor and let us help you get your first ADU.
Is there, because you're building, let's say you have the house, and even though if the lot is bigger, then you're building another unit on it, right? Are there things that somebody that's going to do something like that need to know regarding access and parking and like the setup of it to make sure that you're just not setting yourself up for failure once you get two different families living in there and they're sharing a space? Like, what kind of issues have you run into, or have you run into issues with stuff like that as far as the layout and the setup and just having people in such close proximity on a lot like that?
Yeah, wonderful question, Jason. What I look for and what you guys should look for as well is these are like my top three, and the one of them isn't going to be as relevant, at least in the Central Valley of California, in the Valley. But I want to find a flat lot. I want there to be alley access, corner access, or side access. And that's not to say that a 50-foot wide by 200-foot deep lot isn't a good play for an ADU. You just have to walk out to the backyard to get to it. So I like a flat lot, I like good access, and then I like good infrastructure. So 1970s and newer is usually what I'm looking for. A lot of what we're buying right now is 1940s, but the infrastructure that we want from the 70s and newer has already been replaced. So we always scope the sewer line. Like I don't even go in a lot of the houses that pique our interest right away. I'm looking at the transformer on the power pole. I'm paying $200 to have my plumber scope the sewer so we can make sure that it's not concrete, or it's not cast, or it's not clay, or it's not Orangeburg. If I buy a 1940s house, but it has a brand new PVC sewer line that's 100 feet long, I'm like, okay, there's $25,000 I don't have to spend in the next 5 years. So the parking comes with the access. In California as well, you don't need to provide off-street parking for the ADU, but it sure as hell helps. Yeah. Like when all your competition is a multifamily building and they have a 100-foot walk to their second floor apartment, and you can drive right up to your brand new standalone detached little custom house, and they're about the same price. Which one are you going to rent every time? So we want parking. And that's another reason why the 3-bedroom, 1,000-square-foot ADU that's maxed out at rent is probably going to be a roommate situation, and you're going to have more cars and more visitors. If we build a unit to our tenant who in our area, because we know them intimately, is a teacher or a nurse, they've just gotten out of a serious relationship and they're not married with kids yet. They're in that like 3-year transition period. They have one car, they're punctual, they've got great credit. We only need one parking space per unit. Even though the state says we don't need any on paper, we want parking. So parking, flat lot, and infrastructure, 3 or 4% grade can add exponential cost, hauling material in and out, engineering your soils, engineering your foundations. We avoid all that by buying flat lots.
Bro,
so those are my big ones.
I love your business model because you have no competition. Like, you've created your own blue ocean, essentially, to where you can pay more than anybody else. You aren't sitting there going into bidding wars. It's just you know exactly what you need to do to get the yield you want. How much equity are these things adding when you're actually adding one on? Because I know sometimes people are like, well, you don't even get a return on equity. It's just cash flow.
Yeah, great question there too. You guys are like bringing the best out of me today. I'm like, I have to take my shirt off. I'm like getting warmed up here. I would say that in our market, because we're really good at it, we're probably doubling our initial investment. So I'll just give you all my numbers, right? So we buy a property, the house, let's just say it rents for enough to break even. So what we're building is going to be all equity, and it's going to be all cash flow in that deal. So we have to be really tight, right? We got to make sure it's going to work. We build our 524 square foot unit from anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000, depending on the infrastructure we need. And it's going to give a contributory value in our market on that property of at least 1.25 to 1. So say I build it for 100, it's easily going to add the appraised value on our property of $125,000, if not more, with this amazing caveat that your listeners in California or Oregon or Washington can tap into as well. Now we have what's called fee simple lot partitioning. There's always been condoization. So let's just say we take that house. It's a $500,000 house. We build a $100,000 ADU, and now that property appraises for $625,000. Well, all of a sudden, in the last couple of years, due to new state laws, we can do a fee simple lot partition, sell that lot, do a little bit of paper administrative work, $3,000 or $4,000, some survey, 4 to 6 months of time, and that $100,000 build that gets $125,000 contributory value on the parent lot now is on its own lot and has a real market value of, say, $400,000. So we just built a $100,000 asset that's worth $400,000. And there's a couple markets that this has, been playing out for a couple of years in. You guys probably know Thatch up in Seattle. This is one of his big plays. There's a couple people in California that are getting smart to the SB9 law, and they're doing this. We're not interested in that because we don't like selling and we don't like tax bills. I don't need to 1031 all these deals into an apartment building because of stuff we've already talked about. So we keep them, but it is really nice to know that we could supercharge our equity at any time. If we did if we wanted to, we could do a zoning use change from an accessory dwelling unit to a detached duplex, meet the middle housing rules, and then convert it to a fee simple lot and split all these off and sell them. One day that may happen. Part of my plan is to build as much housing as I possibly can until I die, and then we're going to give it away. And part of giving it away might be, let's break it up and give it away in these chunks, as opposed to giving it away like landlord style. So more to come on that. I don't have an exact plan. As soon as I find a bureaucracy that's really, really got their shit together, I'm going to try to set up a foundation linked to that for the giveaway process. But I've got a lot of years to live. I plan to live a long time, so I don't have to figure that out today. But the value is what you put into it. And one thing I'll say on the flip side is a lot of people live in a $400 a square foot neighborhood, and they build an ADU for $600 a square foot, and then they scream when they don't burn their money back out. It's build to the neighborhood. Don't over design and overbuild your ADU. And if you're ever really curious, my biggest tip is to take the set of plans, whether it's my free set of plans, the city of Fresno's free set of plans, whatever. Pay. I value your time, Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser. I'm going to pay you to give me an opinion of value of this plan set at this address. And that takes some of the guesswork out for some of the newer people.
For most of your properties, are they on separate meters when you're putting in that ADU?
Yeah, 50-50. So some of them have their own public meter, and then the ones that don't have a public meter, we put a private ADU meter on there. And I've got a YouTube video on my channel that says if you YouTube ADU power metering, just a couple minutes, and I talk about how, hey, here's the main power meter, and then here's this digital meter. So every bit of power that runs through this private meter, we can record. And once a month, we just add up the kilowatt hours. We multiply them by 15 cents a kilowatt hour, and we can back bill the tenant for exactly what they use. And it's a huge advantage for the tenant, because we don't have to just say, hey, it's $100 a month flat rate for utilities. We say, hey, you have a brand new efficient house, and pay for whatever you need to be comfortable, and we'll bill you monthly. And they can control their own utility destiny, if you will. So we put those meters. So they're either publicly or privately metered to empower the tenant.
With these new builds that you're doing, are you adding in solar into all of them? I know that's big in California. I think it's a law now to where everything has to have solar. So are you putting it on there to pass on savings to them? What does that look like?
No, never. We do not fall under the California code yet. So California, every ADU, unless it's a HUD approved manufactured home, has to have solar. We don't. Our state law says that they have to be solar ready. So we put a wire up to a roof jack into the attic. So at any time we can turn on solar. The negative with solar right now is that you need X amount of kilowatt hour usage to even break even. So if you have a 3,500 square foot house with an EV charger and a heated pool, it's a no-brainer. You're losing money if you don't have solar. But when you have a 524 square foot, highly efficient, basically passive home, it doesn't even kind of pencil to put solar on it because they're so efficient. So no, we don't have solar on one of our units.
I have more questions. So you with these new developments now, are you splitting all of them? just so you're prepared if you ever want to. So like now you're like, okay, I know what
that was very
happen.
interesting. That whole everything that you broke down there about being able to sell off and partition them out, even just later on in the future. I think it does kind of make sense. This is a really good question of whether you're just preparing now and just doing it, or do you take it to a space where if you wanted to flip that switch later on down the road, you could do that with some paperwork and just time
like sending them the paperwork and you're good to go. Or with bureaucracy, I'm always afraid that I would not know the person in the department anymore and something changes. So I'd want to push it through as much as I possibly can before the bean counters change their mind.
That's so amazing. I mean, it's not a surprise, guys. Listen, if you're watching these guys, you know, success leaves clues. They're asking good questions because they're smart and they're doing it. And I love that. Like, I'm always in the same mindset as you, Strat Daddy. I'm like, God damn, they're going to change it. I better act quick. And the pendulum will swing. I mean, for years and years and years, zoning was awful to keep poor people out of rich neighborhoods. Now it's swinging back the other way where there's no parking, density, build tighter and taller. Eventually, we're going to be like, oh, shit, like we went too far. Let's pull it back. So I like to line everything out. So it's splittable down the road. And I plot it in my head and I plot it on paper so I know how to do it. I try to get emails that support what I'm trying to do. And to your point, Jason, like, we are not buying a single property ever. We won't even look at a property that doesn't have a land bank. So I don't buy any property that's not big enough to split or partition or add to. Our strategy really is about putting more units on one single tax lot. If I buy this awesome house on an alley and we build an ADU on the back tax lot, the back alley access, and we split it into its new tax lot, but we want to keep it, we've just really lowered our cash flow because we have a new tax bill, we have a new insurance bill, we have all these new things that push down on our yield. But what I do is I put them on their new utilities while we're already there with an excavator. I tie into the sewer as opposed to tying into the lateral. I put a new power drop to a new meter as opposed to tying into the existing panel of the existing house. So the infrastructure is set up. The land area supports it. I meet the current standards. I just don't file it. So to answer your question really quickly is yes, everything we're looking for has to be splittable. And in the future, we have that option. And then when we build and we develop, we put in the needed infrastructure to hold them and own them separately, even though we plan to hold them forever. And you guys should too. Like, they're not making any more land. So if you're looking at some of these sweetheart deals, or maybe there's a criteria that you need on your checklist now that, oh, maybe it doesn't cash flow, maybe it's not quite this, but oh, wait, it has a double lot. Like, we're going to keep this one. Just put that in the back of your, put that in your back pocket for later, because eventually there's going to come a time when, the desirable areas have no more land to build on. And, it was probably 20 years ago, people said that those days are over in Fresno, and look at what's happened. Like, you guys have been on a complete boom.
Yeah.
But when did you gain the confidence to finally leave your job? I think that's something a lot of people go through. And how did you go through like setting that goal? Because $10,000 in cash flow is really, really hard to get to in single family rentals.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to have to just be really, really honest on this one. It was hard. It was hard for me. So much of my identity was like being a fireman. Like, I drove a fire truck and ran into burning buildings and hung out with my boys. And it was like being on a sports team, and we all wear the same colors. When the bell goes off, you go hard. And I didn't want to lose that. Like, the fear of losing my frat was really hard. And then the fact that it's such a hard job to get, it's so hard to get hired. It's like this pretty bureaucratic paramilitary system with seniority built into it. It's really hard to get on. And then every year you get, you have more benefits and more time off, the health insurance, the life insurance, the optional benefits, the pay. It was also good that I had guilt of I grew up poor. I've got this amazing job. I have, all this time off. I work 6 days a month. How selfish would I be to leave this job? And it was, we hear about the golden handcuffs, but I was literally handcuffed to myself. It wasn't even to my job. I was handcuffed to my own self-limiting beliefs. So when you ask me, how did you gain the confidence to leave your job? I'm like, dude, I got to be real with these guys. It was hard. I didn't have the confidence to leave my job. I hit financial freedom and I stayed at my job for years because I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to lose a job that everybody wanted and I was going to be less of a man. Like that was it. I was just afraid. And what I found out within like literally is like seconds of leaving and making the decision, when I make a decision, I'm pretty solid on it. It just takes a long time to get there. Was that it was a risk. I was at risk to think that I was safe at that job. When we open up our mind and we go out into the world, and Jason talks about burning the bridges in 14. And if you haven't heard his story, I suggest you do, and hear about how, he went from, selling iPads to schools to being a bicycle enthusiast, right? You learn really quickly that the fear was all fake. It was all in my head. The fear that I had of like, I'm going to lose all the security of my job. Like I have so many more income streams now than when I had a job that I thought was safe. I just didn't have enough people around me telling me like, you're going to go kill it. All my friends around me were like, I don't know, man, you got a pretty good job. Like you worked pretty hard to get there. You probably should stay. And it's like, oh man, all my freaking self-limiting friends too. Right. So it took a long time to get the confidence. And if I could share anything with people today, I would share this: is get your credit score high, get some assets, get some home equity lines, maybe get a new primary mortgage, and then quit. A lot of people I see are super eager and super hungry and are actually super talented, but they give up their one linchpin for lending when they leave. It's like, secure some financing first, secure some debt before you jump. And so I took that advice too far, because I was like, let me just get one more primary. Let me get one more HELOC on a property. And I just kept like one more in myself. And finally I was just like, dude, I'm out of here. And honestly, it wasn't even me. Like they made a scheduling change, and my chief pissed me off. And I basically just was like, you guys aren't going to put your thumb on me. Like, sorry. And that was what really made the decision for me. Was they gave me a scheduling change. And that was it. So it was really probably good advice, dude, to be problem with authority. It was a problem with authority.
Being prudent when you're making that jump is important, because it's like, I share my story about burning the boats, but I did have a safety net because my wife was W-2 for a very long time afterwards. I mean, Jennifer didn't retire until we had almost 100 doors. You know what I mean? And we had accomplished a lot, and we had her income, her ability to borrow, all of that stuff was there for a very long time before she actually retired. So it's very, very good advice to have your ducks in a row financially, because that stuff can be an asset. You're very good on paper to a bank when you have readily available steady income coming in. So that's good advice.
Bro, where can people find out more about you? Thank you so much for coming on. And do you have any parting words?
Yeah, you can find me at that ADU guy anywhere. I'm probably most active on Instagram, on YouTube. I share how to build an ADU from the ground up. We've got 400 videos. It's all free on my YouTube channel. You can look at anything that you think is a question you might want answered on an ADU, and we probably have a video of it. And the parting words I would give people is you have to be competitive. Like if you don't want to win, like you're going to lose. Sorry, bro. You need to want to win and not give up. And as long as we don't give up and we don't die, like if you just pick one thing and you go really, really hard at it, you're going to win. Like you will win. Look at all the people winning. Like look around you.
Bro, I love it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Go give Derek a follow. Thank you guys again. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.